Hi everybody, in this video I'm going to show you how to simplify algebraic fractions. And something you have to be careful about is that when you're cancelling, you need to make sure that you only do it when everything on your numerator, so on the top, and everything on your denominator is multiplied by each other. So some quick examples of what you can and can't do. If I had something like this where I've got 2 times a times b divided by 7 times a times c, everything's multiplied on the top, everything's multiplied on the bottom, so it's okay for you to cancel out your numbers or your variables. So in this case, I've cancelled out my a on the top with one of the a's on the bottom. That's okay, not a problem there. What a lot of people try to do though is they get a little bit trigger happy, I guess, at cancelling. In a case like this where you've got 2a plus b and 7a plus c, and a lot of people see an a on the top and a on the bottom, they go, oh awesome, I can cancel that out straight away. You can't do that, and make sure that you don't do that. So we'll do a couple of examples. We'll start off with some easy ones, and then we'll work our way to attack some behemoths. For the first one, and I like to approach these in a particular manner, the first thing I always try to do is I try simplify my coefficients if I can, so the numbers in front. And you simplify them just like you would a normal fraction. You think of a number that goes into 4 and 20, which is 4. And 4 goes into 4 once, so cancel out 4, you'll have 1 left over. 4 goes into 25 times, so I'll cancel it out, I'm going to have 5 left over. And because it's all multiplication on the top, all multiplication on the bottom, it's okay for me to cancel my a's out. And then I just rewrite everything that's left over. So I'm just going to be left with 1/5 in the end, and you're done. Now sometimes you're going to have brackets. Now, when you have brackets, you need to try to think of this whole bracket as one particular variable or number. So this x minus 2 is all together. So I've got 2 multiplied by something divided by 8 multiplied by the same thing that I had on top. So again, first I deal with the numbers. A number that goes into 2 and 8 is 2. 2 goes into 2 once. 2 goes into 8 4 times. And because my bracket is exactly the same as my bracket that's on the bottom, then it's okay to cancel it out as long as everything in the bracket is exactly the same. So I'm going to cancel out my x minus 2 bracket on top with my x minus 2 bracket on the bottom, and all I'm left with is going to be 1/4, and I'm done. Now sometimes it's not already going to be in brackets for you, and you're going to have to do a little bit of work before you do any cancelling out. So for this one, you've got x squared minus 2x on top, you got an x on the bottom. You can't do much with this, but you can't just start cancelling out x's because you've got this subtraction sign here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to factorize this top part, and then what I'll end up with is a bracket and a multiplication between that and the number in front. So I'm going to factorize out the x from both, because x goes into both. So I'm going to take out the x. Now x squared divided by x leaves me with x. Negative 2x divided by x leaves me with negative 2. And on the bottom, I've still got my x. So I've got x multiplied by something. Remember, think of it as a whole bracket as one thing, divided by x. So it's okay to cancel out my x on the top with my x on the bottom, and all I'm going to be left with is x minus 2, and I can leave the brackets out now because they're not really doing anything. So I'm all done. Do a couple of harder examples now. Now the number one thing to do in this is to break it up into small questions. Now if you have a look on the top, hopefully you can see that you've got a trinomial. And if you're not sure how to factorize trinomials, I have got a video on that. So what I'm going to do is factorize the top using the shortcut method. And this x minus 9 on the bottom, there's not a whole lot I can do with that. But this x minus 9 is all together. So what I'm going to do for now is I'm just going to put some brackets around it just to remind me that that x minus 9 is all together. Focusing on the numerator, so this trinomial. When you factorize your trinomials, it has to add to be equal to this middle number. So it's going to have to add to get negative 3. And it has to multiply to get this number that's at the back. So it has to multiply to get negative 54. Now these could be some tricky numbers to try and choose. Again, the more you practice these, the quicker you'll get. But the numbers that I can use are -9 and +6. And we'll just check that's right before we do the shortcut method. -9 plus 6 is -3, so that's okay. And -9 times 6 is -54. So we know that these two numbers are going to work when I do the factorizing. So now I'll actually factorize it and we'll see what we have. So it's going to be x minus 9 and x plus 6, because they're the two numbers that I figured out earlier. And I've got that over the top of x minus 9. Now for a lot of textbook questions, what you'll realize is a lot of your brackets are going to match up, and that's where your cancelling occurs. So I can cancel out, I've got x minus 9, so some number multiplied by some number divided by some number. So these x minus 9s are going to cancel out, and all I'm left with is x plus 6. And again, I don't need to write the brackets anymore because they're not really doing anything. One last question, and it's the behemoth. Now the important thing to do when you see a question like this is not to panic. Try break it up into small things that you do recognize. So if I have a look at this top one up here, you need to realize that that's a trinomial. I can factorize that. If I have a look at this guy, he's also a trinomial. I can factorize that. This guy on the bottom, x squared minus 4, you may not realize yet, but it is a difference of two squares. If you don't know how to factorize difference of two squares, I also have a video on that. And down here, I also have another difference of two squares. So what I'm going to do is deal with each of these individually and put it all together at the end. So focusing on this first one up here, I need to think of some numbers that add to get -4 and multiply to get -12. Again, with practice you'll get quicker, but some numbers that will do that are -6 and +2, and we'll check that because we're going to use the shortcut method. -6 plus 2 is -4. -6 times 2 is -12. So these two numbers are going to work when I do my factorizing. So I'll do that first. So this is going to factorize into x minus 6 and x plus 2 over something. I'll deal with that next. Now this is the difference of two squares. Actually, I'll do it now. This is the difference of two squares. You may not realize that because this 4 number isn't squared. But I'm going to rewrite that 4, so I'm just going to cross them out, and I'm going to replace them with 2 squared. So now you can see it's a difference of two squares. So with the difference of two squares, when you factorize it, it's the first one plus the second one in the first bracket, then the first one minus the second one in your second bracket. So far I've dealt with this whole side. Now the next side, I'll deal with the trinomial first again. So we have to think of some numbers that add to give me -6, multiply to give me +8. And some numbers that will do that are -4 and -2. So -4 plus -2 is -6. -4 times -2 is +8. So these numbers will work. When I factorize that, it's going to be x minus the first number I chose in the first bracket, then x minus the second number I chose in the second bracket. That's the top right corner done. And now I'm going to deal with this one, and it's also a difference of two squares because 6 times 6 is 36. So I'm going to replace that 36 with 6 squared, so it's a little bit easier to see. Now it's a difference of two squares. It's the same as earlier. It's going to be x plus 6 in the first bracket, x minus 6 in the second bracket. Now again, when you're doing textbook questions, you realize a lot of these are going to cancel out. But before I do that, what I'm going to do is multiply our two fractions. So remember, when you multiply, it's always this numerator times this numerator. So I'm going to just rewrite it out. So I've got x minus 6, x plus 2, x minus 4, x minus 2 over the top of this multiplied by this on the bottom. So it's going to be x plus 2, x minus 2, x plus 6, x minus 6. And now what I can do is all the cancelling out. So there's multiplication between each of my brackets on the top and the bottom. So this x minus 6 can cancel out with that one, x minus 2, x minus 2, x plus 2, and x plus 2. And as you can see, most of it cancels out. So all I'm left with is x minus 4 on the top divided by x plus 6 on the bottom. So there's nothing too tricky on it. You just need to make sure that you break it up into individual questions and try put it together at the end. It does take a little bit of time, but with some practice you will get quicker at it, and hopefully you'll make less mistakes. So thanks for watching, please subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.